Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Analytics Mindset. This is the last video for Dataiku most likely because I just got my developer certificate and I will be going over what it means, how to get one, more importantly I guess how different it is from my certifications, and I would say this is the most far removed certification from all the other ones regarding analytics. I still think it's important. It goes more into the coding, variable declaring, object oriented programming side of things, but I still think it is very useful and you may find it an interesting path to follow if you want. Without further ado, the developer certificate, you will need to get the code designer. That's pretty much the only um, requirement. Now, a very important part is that you need to have a Dataiku instance. I'm recording this from my personal computer, therefore I cannot show you how I actually did it. In my work computer, though, I have a full instance of Dataiku that Walmart provides to me, and I am able to do things like creating a flow, import projects, things like that. In summary, you will need an active instance of Dataiku. Unfortunately, if you don't have one, I recommend you to just go to the products for learning. If your company doesn't use Dataiku also, it is very hard that you're going to get any return from this. It is a free exam, doesn't cost a penny. But if you can't access the IQ, there is not really much of a point to get it. And more so, if your company doesn't use the IQ, you will also not have a lot of advantage, even if you finish it. There is just no point. You're better off putting your time elsewhere. With a disclaimer, we will go first into what this actual certification means. The certification with Dataiku. Dataiku is, I like to call it a fancy wrapper around Python. It is not. It has a lot more stuff. It has a lot more features. It has a lot of other things. However, it relies a lot on Python. Behind the scenes, all its automation is mostly done on Python. You can actually see the code behind it if you really want to. Even though it focuses on drag and drop, focuses on allowing you to do things without coding or with little coding. They call it no code, low code. It does allow you to code things. It uses Python, a lot of Python. Mostly it's about conceptual questions, but you will have specific questions regarding to a project that you need to do. And I actually also got my certification that I will show you at some point. I will actually do that right now. You can see here and you can see the curriculum. For this, you will have a multiple choice exam. And then, as you can see, I already got it. And I'm just going to do into my profile. And for the notes, I will go into the actual learning path that they give you so you can prepare. It's called an advancer. It also has the target profile of advanced analytics designer. Therefore, it does not have the advanced designer as a prerequisite, but it's heavily encouraged. It helps you quite a lot on understanding what Derek is doing. Especially if you go more into the automation side of things, it's going to go over scenario analysis. How do you do A/B testing? How do you do all of this in Python, in code, not only in drag and drop that you just did that in the other certifications, but in this case is how do you do that in code? How do you talk to the API? There is only two recommended courses to prepare for the certification: Code within Dataiku and Custom Automation. We'll go over there in very big detail. The additional learning, not that much. It really didn't go that much into it. It's good background information. You don't need to do it, but I strongly recommend you to do it so you understand what's happening. And at least in my case, it was good to know. This is an open book exam, by the way. Just another disclaimer, I forgot. You can refer to it after. If you go to the material, you know where to find it. And were specifically, instead of just trying to mess around and see what's happening when you're doing the project. You can see here that I just finished the developer certification here. Yeah, developer certificate that was on October 19th. I wanted to post this earlier. However, I had other things, and Christmas is just around the corner. I just really want to post this before any of that. And then you will have share code, and we will start with the code within the IQ. It goes through a lot of things. The biggest part that you need to focus here is the API concept. An application programming interface allows you to talk with a program to talk to another program. Think about it as a fancy way to say, hi, can you give me this? And the other program is like, yes, I have this, here you go. But it needs to be in a very specific format, it needs to be very specifically defined, and you need to have the connection ready. And most applications do give you an API. In this case, the API is between Dataiku and Python. It allows you to do these fancy things called code notebooks, code recipes, put variables, and we'll just go very quickly through this one because it's one of the recommended ones. It will give you this video, and I will not bore you with the video, but I do still want you to go to at least some very brief concepts on this. You have the value of APIs, and you can see here that you have the visual tool, and you can communicate by speed development and enhance collaboration. It talks to Python and R. Dataiku does have some support for R. It is not as much as with Python, but it does have some support for R. And you can actually work with it with low-level actions and high-level actions. You can use all the programming concepts. You can do code recipes, code notebooks. There is a code studio, a web app scenario, and you can even do your own IDE and then just load it to Dataiku. Dataiku does allow you to do that. Inside Dataiku, you can do things like, again, anything that you could do with your drag and drop, but think about it more as, I won't call it automation because it's not what you're thinking. You could do things like, usually for the IQ, you will clean data, extract it from a database, then format it in some way that then puts it into a stage environment, and then from that staging to wherever you need to visualize it. This is more like automating the steps in it. You're automating how to change the scenario. It's like meta automation, if I would like to call it that way. You're automating the actual maintenance of the IQ. You're automating what you can do. You can also change the steps and all, but Dataiku has really this focus on hybrid development where they still want you to do some stuff by drag and drop and then automate it through code on top of it. This plugin is more for things that you cannot do in Dataiku. You can do other things in it, but it is more for when Dataiku doesn't have this capability, you can just code it yourself. And you can see here, you can automate project tasks. So again, you are not really automating the actual task itself, you're automating the process of doing a task, like run a scenario. That's how Dataiku calls its automation. Review the data set or trigger a flow in a schedule. You can administer Dataiku from other sites. You can integrate with other systems. Airflow is a big one here. Or pull custom scripts. And finally, you can deploy and manage services. That is scoring services, project developer services, deployer services. We won't go that much into detail because it is a very, very, very long topic, but we will go really quickly to code notebooks. You can actually use Jupyter notebooks in Dataiku, and you can use them in various sections. Here you can see, you can create it from the lab and then code notebook. Then you can expect it's also always going to give you a template. You don't need to worry that much about not knowing the syntax, but Dataiku has this API, as it said, import Dataiku, and from Dataiku the pandas utils as PDU. And then it will say this dataset is called dataset orders. You need to go to Dataiku, that orders, and then in the orders here, and from the dataset orders, and then you can get the data frame and you're limiting it to almost 1,000,000 rows. Actually, 100,000, my bad. And then you can just do some descriptive statistics there. You can edit code. You can publish a code to the notebook to a dashboard, things like that. And the other big part of it is the code recipe. After you do in notebooks auto experimentation, you can actually use code recipes to build your outputs into the flow and actually do things there. You can create them from scratch. You can create them from the notebook. You can do whatever you want. And after that, you can do things like edit code there. You can see here, you are trying to create this. Let's group the data. You're doing the aggregation here that you could do with a um, simple recipe in Dataiku, but it really wants you to actually do it by using the code just to show you how to do it. And it can become very complex. The Python environment has a kernel. You can go between a recipe and a notebook. It will show you that you can do that. And then we're also going to go really quickly into the concept of variables. I won't go into static insights and folders because again, this is just tips and tricks. It's not that much on an actual video for me going through the whole exam. But variables in everywhere, not only DDQ. I want to make this a little bit more clarifying. You can use variables for a lot of things. You can avoid hard coding things. You can pass them from one side to another. You can make a dynamic output. You can reduce the storage that you use because you're not predefining everything. And you have multiple variable types in the queue: instance, project, and scenario level. You can work with them depending on what do you do, and you can create them almost from everything. Now we're going to go to the other one in data queue that is required is custom automation. You can do multiple things here. You can do custom metrics, data quality checks, and run scenarios. Data quality rules were called as checks before, actually. That's just how rebranding of data queue. Just keep that in mind. You can create a Python probe, that's how they call it, when you want to do it, or a SQL probe. You can also do SQL if you prefer to talk to a database directly and you don't want that much of Python. You can focus on the Python probe. For example, here it does have a lot more capabilities. You can have all of this to do a probe, and I will just go really quickly through it. It will get the dev process, you are defining something. Dataset partition ID, you're getting the data frame first from the data set, then you're getting the number of records, and then you're returning the number of records as something else. And that will show as a metric. Then you can do checks. You can see if there is any specific thing in the check. You can create a check about almost everything. Is this passing the check or is this not? It needs to be a Boolean, and DQ likes this format as awk or error, but yeah, you can define anything you want. Finally, data quality rules. You can also create different data quality rules, and it can be in custom scenarios as well. Well, the last part that I'm going to go through are the custom step-based scenarios. In the background, anything that DataQ does is just a scenario. It is something that runs automatically to a schedule or a trigger. It's just Python. It will show you that you can just get a custom Python step. You can build a data set with code. You can see here, you build the data set, and then you can actually save it into the scenario. You can do a scenario manually by just triggering a scenario and say scenario, create scenario, but DataQ wants you here. There is a lot more that you can do here in the code of the scenario. You can actually, here's the scenario now, it's the scenario part, and you can actually say what's the trigger. The trigger is going to be that this is in this folder, that the condition is here. And you can also say that you want to auto trigger it or avoid unwanted rules and just do it manually. You can create scenario variables as we have already talked about. And finally, you can visualize results. There is a lot more, but again, this is just tips and tricks. Definitely having Python experience helps you a lot with it. High level overview of these last ones to close this video. Plugin development is that you can actually create a plugin, you can share with others plugins, you can actually just create whole libraries and packages in Python. You can create everything pretty much as long as it talks to Dataiku. Dataiku can allow you to run it on their instance, on their kernel, using their kernel or on their environment. And you can customize the environment. You can say, I need these packages, I need this, I need that, I need that. And you can get your admin instance administrator to do it for you. Then you can use Dataiku Git. That's pretty integrated to Dataiku to do version controlling. Do I need to revert to the previous version? Do I need to fork this? Do I need to go here and there? It is pretty useful, especially if you're a very advanced user. R. R is a programming language that I have talked to in the past, not as much as I should probably. I will go more into it in the future. But it has a lot more, it's more focused on data science than Python, more focused on specific stuff there. So yeah, you can use it with R. I will not touch that much web apps, but I will just tell you that you can interact with the web apps, share them with consumers, so people can see that are not programmers, and you can use them with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Or you can prefer to use Shiny in R or Dash and Bokeh. That's really not my preference, but if you prefer to do front-end development, you can do it. Keep that in mind. ML models. You can create your own custom ML models. You have hundreds of them available on Python, on DirectQ, but you can still do a lot more there if you want to. You can implement the ML models. You can require the methods and attributes. You can create a specific ML model. You can create customs and ensemble models. It really depends on what you want. And the last part is share code. You can share the code that you are going to develop, and that way it saves you a lot of time. You can put that into a Git repo. You can actually import from the Git repo. You can create code snips. Yes, overall, it taps very well with the MLOps certification because it allows you to know how to improve your own operations, know how to do this cycle where you develop stuff and then somebody else might need a similar code and you can create it with that and share it, and that just saves everybody's time. All right, this video went a little bit longer than I thought. It is December 21st. Happy holidays. And I will see you next year. I doubt I will post until next year. But yeah, I hope this notification was interesting to you. And as always, if you are planning to take it or you just want to help me at all, post a like, a comment, or let me know any kind of feedback that you may have. Thank you. Bye bye.